The Kurayoshi distillery is kind of considered public enemy number one in Japan, but they're attempting to turn over a new leaf with the Matsui, so I'll tell you all about it as we get into it. Hello everybody, and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary, where I do the research, try to teach you a little something about what you're drinking. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Matsui, which is a single malt Japanese whiskey, and this is aged in Mizunara casks. Everything about that sounds awesome, right? So, what was I getting at the beginning of this video about the Kurayoshi distillery? So, Kurayoshi used to be kind of a smokescreen for importing raw materials from outside of Japan into Japan, making whiskey out of it, and calling it Japanese whiskey. However, the laws around Japanese whiskey are very loose. Think like old school, American whiskeys. You really could just kind of do whatever you wanted. And still can. And it's a little unfortunate. But the thing is, there are purists who kind of understand that Japanese whiskey should be made in Japan. You should be sourcing your grains from Japan. You should be making it in Japan. You should be using Japanese water. And that's part of the reason that people are frowning upon Kurayoshi. Now, here's the thing. They are attempting to change their ways. Just like any other small distillery that might start out and is sourcing from MGP in the United States here, or maybe getting from Cooley up in Ireland. You want to do your own thing eventually, and however you have to get there, there's a little bit of excuse that can be made for you. Now, in this instance, Kurayoshi started distilling their own stuff around 2018, and this is what this is. This is only a couple of years old. This is a very young Japanese whiskey, but it is made from malted barley out of Japan. Now, if I'm going to give them a bit of an excuse, prime real estate in Japan especially farming real estate in Japan, is very expensive. There's only so much to go around. And because of that, getting your stuff sourced within Japan is very, very expensive, almost inhibitive for a newer distillery. And so to some degree, I can understand what they were doing. But there's always that part of calling yourself something that you're not that's going to make people think less of you. So let's put all that aside. Let's talk about what they actually are. So this is essentially a 2-year-old whiskey that was made in Japan out of Japanese raw materials, and that's all you need to know. It's a single malt from Japan. So let's talk about some of the metrics around this bottle. This is a no-age statement whiskey. It's 48%. It's aged in Mizunara casks, and it's made of 100% Japanese barley. No color added and non-chill filtered. So they're doing everything right as far as I'm concerned. But let's go ahead and go into the nosing and the tasting and find out. So the nose here is frankly a little disappointing. I'm trying to keep in mind that this is a no-age statement. This is a young whiskey. And it smells like a young whiskey, which to me, young whiskey of this caliber tend to come across as a little grassy and a little bit like musty hay. There's something unique going on in here, though, and I will say this is kind of interesting. If you think of Campbelltown, there's a funk that tends to go with Campbelltown. I've got the Springbank right behind me, actually. I've been drinking it recently. And there's a little bit of a Campbelltown funk in here, which is kind of neat. I don't mind that. There's some pear in there, which is super common to Japanese whiskey. Almost entirely to almost every Japanese whiskey I've had has smelled in some way of pear. I'm also getting some impressions of like fruits and melons and maybe even a little banana. This is kind of all over the place, but generally the concept here is light and fruity with that bit of musty hay, and a little bit of funk. So I don't know what to make of that, but oh well, it's all over the place. So let's go ahead and have a taste. Cheers. There's a lot going on there too. At first taste, as soon as it hits your tongue, I have to say I'm a little let down. A Mizunara finished Japanese whiskey that's 100% Japanese barley should be a home run. This is not. But the taste here, let me try to be a little bit more specific. I don't feel like they represented the Mizunara very well. And I think that might be my disappointment. And if I'm giving actual tasting notes, I'm sorry. So when I've compared this to other things, which I get this is not a fair comparison, like Glendalough 13, that's used Mizunara, or the Kayo, which uses Mizunara. This doesn't taste like Mizunara. It doesn't. There's a very definitive taste when you use Mizunara to either finish or age your whiskey. This doesn't have it. It almost has it though, and that's, I think, the problem. So a couple of quick tasting notes, because honestly it's a little hard to pick them up. I would say apples, pears. Let me try again. Maybe a little grapefruit, but it's mostly just a little harsh. And what did I say this was? 48%? Yeah, 48%. Even when adding water here, which I did off screen, it does dilute some of those, some of the harshness for sure. But I'm not really getting many more tasting notes. So I'm going to leave it at just general kind of fruitiness and harsh. But let's go into the overall, because I think this is important. And it's killing me a little bit. Well, I shouldn't say that. So I was given this bottle for free. They reached out, they sent me a bottle. And I don't like giving bad reviews to people who give me a bottle. I mean, I always will be honest. It's more just, it's not fun. I don't think this is ready. I think this could be very good. I think it needs more time. And this is where it's a problem. I like that they're trying to turn over this new leaf. I like that they're trying to do something with this brand that they've already built. This is not the way to represent that new turn. I don't think this is going to get you guys very many sales if you start off with this being your new product here. People will be inclined to buy it because it's Japanese whiskey, and Japanese whiskey is great, especially if you're putting it at $80 sitting on the shelf next to something like a Yamazaki 12, which is going to be like $50 more in the US. And people might choose this one because it's a little cheaper. Or if it's next to the Nika, Nika from the barrel even, and maybe it's a little bit more expensive, people buying in the middle. But this is going to be a severe letdown, I feel. And it kills me to say that because I hate being negative about something that somebody worked hard on. But I also have to take into account you guys, people who watch me week after week. This is not worth your money, especially at around $80, if you can even find it. Give this more time. Wait for this to be an age statement whiskey. If it is, I hope that they'll choose to send me another bottle, or that I see one on the shelf. If I see an age statement, I'll purchase it. I would love to give this another try. I was so excited when I saw Japanese whiskey and Mizunara. Those might be two of my favorite things combined. And it's just not there. So for the moment, this gets an ignore it from me. And sorry. So anyway, let's do this. If you guys are interested in other Japanese whiskeys, here's a playlist on some of the other Japanese whiskeys that I reviewed. If you want to see whatever YouTube thinks you should watch, go watch this one. Otherwise, join the Patreon. There's all kinds of good stuff in there, and there's some cool perks at pretty low tiers. So go check it out. So thank you very much for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Cheers.